Former CNN host and anchor of Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter, has a new gig. Stelter scored a fellowship at the Shorenstein Center on Media, Politics, and Public Policy at Harvard's Kennedy School, where he will be talking about threats to democracy and responses from the media. He was let go from CNN last month as part of a facelift that network's new CEO, Chris Licht, has implemented in an effort to save the dwindling media giant, which continues to tank. Stelter is due to start his fellowship at Harvard in the fall.
Well,
what do you make of this?
What a nice landing for the guy. How nice? Isn't that nice?
Yeah, look, I do think that it is frustrating because Brian was, I got to give him credit, one of the few who even attempted, however clumsily, to bring in some leftists at various parts of his show and try to understand what was going on in other parts of the media sphere. The problem is that that effort seemed to be so limited. And didn't extend into a place of real understanding. I mean, I remember when he had me and some other leftists on, the opening credit screen was of a number of logos that were supposed to represent the world of left media, left, as leftists describe it. And it was things as diverse as like Chapo Trap House, okay, legitimately I would describe as left, and like MSNBC. And it's like, oh, I was going to say the name of another podcast that I don't think I can say on TV. But, other legitimately leftist...
I know which one you're talking about. I'm like going through, yeah.
Legitimately leftist sources, and then just the same
Maybe leftists would have more successful getting on TV if they could pick podcast names that we could actually say on television.
That's more of an entertainment. But, they have like Young Turks and Majority Report and things that I might not always agree with, but definitely are in the left media sphere. And then stuff that was mainstream liberal pablum, and that kind of inability to even understand at that basic level what you're even trying to get at, what you're even trying to describe, I think speaks to why the station as a whole and his show in particular was having these issues.
Look, I liked Brian a lot personally. I'm grateful that he had me on a couple times. So Reliable Sources showed at least some interest in exploring, because I consider my perspective to be certainly not a left perspective, but an alternative perspective from the mainstream media. He had our Monday's co-host, Briahna, on at least once, maybe more than once, to talk in large part about her really, really scathing criticisms of the mainstream media, kind of CNN included. So there was some self-reflection on occasion, but you're right that it was sort of the face of the main shtick, the kind of threats to democracy stuff that CNN so has leaned into that I think, doesn't really have a viewer base. And let's remember that this is a teaching position at Harvard, and actually the way journalism is taught and instructed in a sort of scammy, hoodwinking way to young people is something I'm very wary of. Like, studying journalism at all, or the decision to study journalism, is something someone should make very carefully. Do not go into debt to study journalism. That is a mistake.
To be fair, he's teaching at the Kennedy School, which is a school of government. I don't believe Harvard has a journalism school at all. But, in some ways that's even potentially more problematic, because what is the kind of public policy value that he's going to bring to bear in this moment?
It's a media studies class, right? I don't know what. Look, if you want media experience, do an go to college. Don't go into debt. No one go into debt. Stop doing that. Go to college, intern for the local paper or the student paper or something. Then get an internship and get some on-the-job experience. And if you're good, it can work out. Don't spend the next 5 years of your life studying the art of the media, and that is something. I mean, already very wealthy people, I guess, can do that because they have money to throw at that, and then they know people who get them jobs in journalism. But
as Briahna argues, increasingly only very wealthy people can become journalists. I always wanted to be a journalist growing up and just didn't think it was viable financially, and so I went to law school and was able to kind of backdoor my way into it.
I think the nepotism factor is a bigger factor than the money factor. We probably know, both of we know people, especially in political journalism, so many people who are scions of, they have famous last names, former congressmen, political figures, and they're well connected and they can get their precious little darlings good jobs. And then look, some of these people turn out to be good journalists or fine editors and reporters. but they definitely get a leg up from knowing someone in this town or having a last name where someone knows who
certainly.
you are.
Well, look, this is a landing pad. Going and having these kind of fellowships at Harvard is a landing pad that Brian Stelter isn't the first to enjoy. I remember, at the end of the 2016 Bernie campaign or sometime afterward, my predecessor in the campaign, Simone Sanders, had a similar fellowship gig at Harvard, and it often, I think, just serves as a landing pad for folks as they figure out their next move. So I guess we'll continue to see what happens to folks who are kind of leaving the CNN cinematic universe and making their way in the world.
The CNN cinematic universe. We're interested to see, what the network looks like in the next year or two, and see if they can, if truly what Chris Licht wants to do is win back people who are more in the center or even right-leaning or viewing CNN as a place to just get kind of news without spin, and so you might watch it even if you're right or it's just the neutral channel, which is, I guess, what the role it filled for a long time or purported to fill.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's ways that neutrality can be not actually neutral. That comes in with a lot of foreign policy coverage, in fact, that it purports to be neutral but has a kind of bias toward intervention. So we'll see. Should be interesting. Yeah. More Rising right after this.